Good morning, everybody. As we all know, we've prospered another year living in what the newspapers are calling the best city in America. If you notice, every month somebody's coming out with good news about Houston. Forbes was calling us the coolest city in the nation. And right now I'd have to agree with this weather going from 80 degrees to 8 degrees on a weekly basis. I'd say we're pretty cool these days. Living in Houston, we've seen yet another year of tremendous job growth. Last year I mentioned Houston had become a job-creating machine, and the percentage of jobs recovered in Houston since the recession is 230% of our jobs recovered. So what that means is that we've added more than 2 jobs for every job we lost after the downturn, which leads us in the nation and leads us in the state. With our massive energy sector and our advantage of location, affordable housing, and people, we're by far the fastest growing metropolitan area, and there's really no comparison. We are really the leading machine in the country right now, and it's great to be in Houston. I don't really think anyone can predict the future, and especially in the industrial market, but I have been, through dumb luck or whatever, guessing right for the last few years in a row, which makes me think I may want to consider a career change as a psychic, but I've been advised strongly against that. So I'm going to stick to real estate industrial for now. But it's really, Houston, as I mentioned before, has really become a paragon city, which means we're a perfect example of how to recover and overcome economic downturn, and we really are the economic dynamo in the industry. Houston's industrial market totals over 521 million square feet, and we only have 5 million square feet of space under construction. Supply continues to trail demand with the lack of available industrial inventory, and developers are rushing into the market with spec and semi-spec buildings. We certainly believe that the demand will continue to increase during 2014 and spur build-to-suit and spec projects. Although it fluctuated throughout the year, by the third quarter of 2013, the industrial vacancy rate in Houston has returned to 5.3% average vacancy, which is where we were last year. So we've added more space, but our vacancy has maintained the same. We're still significantly lower than the national average which is about 8%. So we're at 5.3, national average is 8%. The warehouse sector makes up the majority a portion of that market with a vacancy of 4.9%. The only straggler is the flex markets have a vacancy of 9.4%, but they don't really represent a big percentage of the square footage in Houston. As was the case last year, Houston needs to continue to meet the demands of the market, and this demand has triggered development of crane-ready buildings, primarily stemmed by the oil service sector. The energy sector is very active, and we have a lot of buildings in response to this activity, spurred by companies relocating to Houston and new and expansions of a lot of current businesses in the Houston area because all their businesses are up. As a result, I predict that vacancy rates will continue to decline over 2014. The largest project underway in the third quarter was the build-to-suit distribution center for Igloo in the West 10 Industrial Park in Katy. It'll serve as a warehouse and distribution center to handle Igloo's growing sales. And they expect to add about 250 employees. The interesting thing, I was visiting with the president of Igloo, and they had been producing a lot of their coolers in China to date. And he says that as of now, the cost for them to produce their cooler in China and transport it back to America is about break even with producing it here. So to me, that is a great statement for America and a great shift that we're going to see as companies like Igloo are able to relocate a lot of their manufacturing facilities right here. Another large project, which was ours, is the Goya food distribution facility and cannery in Katy, which completed construction this last summer. There are several other large projects underway in the Katy area, and that's why it's really been spurred by the anticipation of the opening of Segment E of the Grand Parkway set for this month, and it really has become a game changer for the Katy area as far as industrial and other sectors are. The Grand Parkway construction began in July on 2 other segments of the Grand Parkway, which will open up north of Katy, which is that whole area of town has really suffered due to a lack of access over the years. The Parkway will improve mobility, and it definitely is something to watch. As mentioned by in the other sectors, it is really going to open up a whole new territory for industrial development to feed all the growth in that area. As far as investment sales, to date, 2013 is up from the previous year. With just in the first 6 months of the year, there were 24 industrial sales for a total volume of 146 million. Larger transactions, 140,000 square foot industrial building sold on Brittmore Road for just under 12 million in September. And there are other sales. There's really, as it was mentioned before, Houston has really become defined as a gateway city. And for international investors, that puts us in the ranks of the Bostons and the Chicagos and the Washington, D.C.s, and that really has brought in a whole new segment of investors that are all now looking at Houston equal with the other parts of the market. Cap rates have varied over the year. Year-end 2014, the cap rate average sales in 2013 averaged 7.67% cap, which is lower than the first 6 months of last year, which was 8.22%. So you can see a continued compression of cap rates due to the lack of product and the entry of all these new investors. Houston is now recognized as a global gateway city. We have the infrastructure in place to grow the demands. It's become a legacy and economic success. With that success comes increased competition as more institutional players enter the industrial world. The good news is most institutional buyers are under-allocated in industrial. And so in these big portfolio and pension funds and stuff, they have always been light in industrial. So in our sector, just to fill it up to their allocated capacity, you're going to see a lot of activity coming down in 2014. Activity has really picked up, and the Houston economy's growth is really what has driven it. Another big key game changer is the Exxon Qatar Petroleum. They were in last year. I mentioned they were in negotiations for an LNG export terminal in Sabine Pass. That deal was signed in May. Between the two companies, the Golden Pass export site, once it receives regulatory approvals, ExxonMobil and Qatar Petroleum will invest $10 billion developing that site. This will generate job growth and spur a lot of activity in the Houston Ship Channel, and it will, of course, spur a lot of development of crane-ready and other industrial sector buildings in order to service that kind of productivity. The ExxonMobil campus, which we talked about last year, their new corporate campus in the Woodlands has really set off a new trend in the industrial sector toward more corporate campus-style living. So we're starting to see FMC bought a big piece. We're starting to see a lot of other oil and gas companies, think about the campus setting and relocating all into one location. So I think you'll find that trend really becoming what ExxonMobil does. Pretty much everybody else follows because they don't do anything without thinking it through. And the campus is similar to the mixed use and other developments that were mentioned here today. What that corporate campus does is it offers hotels, it offers employee amenities such as dry cleaners, on-site health care, running and hiking paths, courtyards, glass walls, reflective pools, food service facilities, fitness centers, all of which are sponsored by the employer in order to do two things. One is attract new employees and retain current employees. So it's all about quality of life on the campus. They want somebody to go to work there and really have all their needs met and not really think about moving around. So the campus corporate projects and industrial projects, that includes a lot of industrial consolidations. I think you're going to see a lot of that because we hear we're talking to a lot of groups about proceeding with something like that. I read recently in the Manhattan Institute that it talks about America's growth corridors, which are kind of the proven track record areas for future success. Houston has been identified and is located in what they call the Third Coast region. A lot of that is driven by the Texas Medical Center, which is the largest concentration of medical facilities in the world. That's important because the medical sector in Houston is really, and their growth is a big driver of industrial sector facilities as well. The medical industry produces and imports a lot of stuff. We're known in the world as the leader in that, and a lot of what you'll see in distribution and stuff in Houston coming forward is going to be driven by the growth of the medical sector. The 2015 completion of the Panama Canal. I know I've been beating the Panama Canal drum for years. Welcome Senior just got back from Panama City last week. It's amazing what's going on down there. That is going to be a game changer for the Port of Houston because of the global exports are expected to increase. And that trade, they're going to stimulate a lot of warehouse and terminal development in the Port of Houston and rail infrastructure as well. So you need to watch the canal. It's coming. It'll be finished in 2015, and there's plans to widen and deepen part of the Houston Ship Channel, and so you're going to really see a lot more goods and services coming here now where they weren't before. Another key factor is the Eagle Ford Shale play. I get regular updates and trying to track the Eagle Ford Shale and what's going on there and how many, it looks like it's sustainable for many, many years. What I wasn't expecting is to see ET fueling up in Texas. According to reports I've read, there have been a series of mysterious, unknown sightings in the Eagle Ford Shale area. I suspect that what they're mistaking real estate developers for aliens, and they just don't know what they look like. But the Eagle Ford Shale has continued to make an impact on the energy sector. As was mentioned before, they pretty much know where all of the oil and gas deposits are, and now it's a matter of extracting that from the ground. And Houston, corporate Houston, makes its living in providing value-added services to the world to do that. And so all of this play down there is doing nothing but helping Houston. Half of the U.S. refining capacity sits in Texas and Louisiana. Producers are seeking liquid markets with strong access to global prices. With the opening of the Panama Canal, we can now look at exporting LNG back, produced here through the canal and back over to other parts of the world. So that's kind of a new market that you're going to see opening up. Houston alone produces approximately 50% of the state's total production and 13.8% of the U.S. capacity of all oil and gas products and chemicals. The first wave of upstream shale development has spurred a second wave of infrastructure investment in Houston. This will bring an influx of engineering and other jobs into the area, which will expand not only the industrial section, but the office component of the industrial section. So as we move forward into 2014, the industrial market outlook for Houston is a promising one. Strength in the energy sector will fuel expansion and increase jobs. As the job growth continues, vacancy rates will continue to decline while rental rate will continue to rise. With the completion of the Panama Canal expansion project, Houston's commercial real estate assets will attract additional attention from investors. With increased investment in the Port of Houston and the drilling in the Eagle Ford Shale, we can expect to see an increase in spec and crane-ready buildings in the Houston market. New companies are eyeing the Houston Gulf Coast as a prime target to set up shop. Houston stands apart as the most powerful job engine in the country and has really dominated the recession, making it truly a paragon city and setting a precedent for other cities to follow. I'd like to close in just a few acknowledgments. Our group, along with Boyer Miller, been very involved in the Houston Food Bank over the years, and we really appreciate all of everybody's support and corporate support for the food bank. It does a phenomenal job, feeds a lot of Houstonians, largest food bank in the country, and continues. So your support there is personally or corporately is appreciated. U of H School of Real Estate, near and dear to our heart. I mean, that is thanks to John Walsh, that is a going concern, and it's really, like was mentioned earlier, what the rest of us had to kind of, make up and learn as we went along in real estate. That's how I got here. It wasn't any kind of program. We just kind of stumbled along until we figured it out. We now have an actual, program to do that. And last, just KIPP Academy is a phenomenal organization. it's amazing their model and what they're doing and how they're being studied and replicated around. So anything to do to support KIPP is a great deal, and we're glad to do what we can to support the infrastructure around KIPP Academy. So thank you. And last thing, I asked Bill why I was last. He said it so he could put me next to the stairs just in case I was too old to step up on the stage. So thank you very much.